why does impact matter? And, particularly student impact, why does it matter? We all need to learn about our why before we do anything. But even before we learn about the why, what is impact? Impact is really when, one object comes forcefully, in contact with another, like with a great force, it comes in contact with another, and an action occurs. That action is one of change, and that is what impact is. That is how impact is created. So, irrespective of the kind of impact you are hoping to make, whether you are making that impact for your community or a single individual, you're basically coming in contact forcibly with an idea, with a group of people, which in turn makes a change. And that is what impact is. So we'll just go over, a few of the points that that really define impact, right? So impact is something that gives you meaning, and here we'll be talking about, we'll go on to talk about purpose and impact and meaning and how they come together, to create, they come together to allow humans to really reach their full potential. So giving you meaning is really why. Why are you doing what you are doing? You're doing something because it matters to you. There is something about that particular thing that you are doing that makes a lot of sense to you, or it should make a lot of sense to you. And that is really the reason why you should be doing it. For example, why did, Bezos create Amazon? Or why did Greta, sit in front of the parliament? That why is really what gave meaning to their purpose, and that is the first part of making an impact. You pursue something that gives you meaning. The second part of this would be, building your tribe. Once you find your purpose or your, meaning in something, you tend to gather around people with similar interests, or people who speak the same language, or people who believe the same things. So you come together with like-minded peers. These could be your school or college friends, these could be your parents, these could be, the area that you live in, people who have a common interest, who believe in the same thing, right? And they want to make a change towards that particular thing, make it better for their community around them. And once you're doing that, you also, you also come across people who have already got experience in that particular space. So let's say you're interested in wildlife, you immediately start following people who've done a lot within that area. That invariably happens. You're either following that person on Instagram or following their stories on LinkedIn or any other place, any social media or Facebook, whatever, their YouTube videos. These are the people you may also reach out to from time to time to and request them to guide you. These are your mentors, and so you're looking for people who are like-minded and who can actually advise you in that space. And you will then automatically also look for people in the industry. We have students who are very, very keen on wildlife, and they have actually reached out for internships with certain organizations that work with wildlife and wildlife conservation. So you're reaching out to that community of people, and by getting to know these people and building your network, you're building that tribe, which is your tribe. They all believe in similar things, and they all want to work towards making it a little better for everybody in that space. The third part is the rewards. When you make an impact, there are rewards. Now, while I've listed out a few of them, every particular thing that you do may not necessarily give you all of these things, right? I mean, happiness, I think, is a given. If you truly believe in something and you truly want to make that change happen and you see it happening, it is extremely satisfying. It does give you happiness, but does it always make money? Probably not. Amazon is making an impact, but Amazon is also making money. But let's say the impact that you want to make is make the lives of, like we had some students who wanted to make the lives of migrant laborers better. So they came together to organize food boxes to give out to them. Now, when you go out and you distribute the food, you're growing as an individual. You're actually using that empathy. You are becoming more of an empathetic person. You are also reaching out to people who believe in the same thing. You're coming up with creative ideas. The pandemic is on. How do you go out at a time of the pandemic when infections are at an high? How do you go out and distribute these? So you're solving these problems. You're learning all these new skills, and these are all skills of growth. So you're learning all this, and yes, it is extremely soul satisfying to be able to help and be able to help another person. And in that sense, yes, happiness is something that definitely comes in. Are you making money in that case? No. But are you making new opportunities more visible? Absolutely. You may think that because you see that there are certain migrant laborers who are not even able to afford to go back to their villages. You decide that you'll set up some shelters, you'll set up a sustainable sort of option for them where they could do some little bit of work around that area and get some money to be able to sustain their families. So you're looking at new opportunities, you're creating these opportunities, you're making them happen. So these are really some of the things that you see happen when you bring your ideas together, when you think of why you're doing what you're doing, how you want to do it, what is your what is the meaning and purpose of it all, right? And you make it happen. That is what impact really and truly is. And those are some of the things that that come out of making that impact. We're going to take a few examples today. Now here I've listed out three really big ones. Okay, I mean, everybody knows these names. How did they start? Google didn't start as a worldwide organization. Google started with two people who were, this was a research project. And, they set up a search engine because they wanted information to be more easily available. And that idea grew over time. More people, came in one by one and said, hey, this is a fantastic idea. Let me chip in and let's do something more, And slowly but surely, Google grew into the giant it is today, simply because two individuals got together and decided they needed to democratize information. And look at the impact that they've made on the world. But everything starts small. Nothing starts like, with a bang, as they say the world did. Airbnb, Airbnb was two guys who, threw an air mattress in their living room and said, let's make a bed and breakfast out of this, and they started renting it out to people who found hotels too expensive in that region. Slowly, they brought more people in. There was a time that, I mean, if you look at the initial website of Airbnb, you'll be shocked because it's certainly not what it is today. They went themselves. These two people went themselves from house to house and clicked photographs. I mean, if you saw how they started it, it was just not a scalable format, but they really believed in what they did. They started with their small community around. And as more and more people bought into that idea and started enjoying that idea, It was it was an experience to live with a local family. And as more people bought into the idea, Airbnb grew bigger and bigger. Again, started by two people. Amazon, started as a book selling online organization. It started small, but look at where it is today. It has completely democratized e-commerce. Anyone can be a seller and anyone can be a buyer at the best price. So these are organizations that were started by one or two people, but they went huge because of the power of impact. That one person made an impact on the immediate community around him or her, and that then snowballed into a bigger and bigger thing till a point where these particular organizations are world giants. But not every impact that is made is this big, but big enough. I mean, if we take a look at some of the other really famous stories that you may all have heard of. I mean, I think every teenager today knows about Greta, and everyone is inspired by Greta. And one thing about impact is how you can inspire others and inspire them to join you, inspire them to build their own impact, whether with you or with other peers, you know. And this is what Greta did. I mean, a 15-year-old who decided that, she'd had enough of governments not listening, and she decided to go join this protest. It was just about raising a voice. And it just built further and further till more and more people started organizing climate change marches across the world. And today, Greta Thunberg is somebody who is giving TED Talks. She is, talking to governments. Climate change is really, really scary. If you really study what is happening, these changes are irreversible for the next few centuries. The kind of damage we've inflicted on the planet. But it is young people who can come and make that change. Not just young people, but also older people. But it is more and more people get inspired, and Greta did that. One single teenager who started that movement. So nobody is too small or too alone to make an impact. Look at Malala's story. I mean, she was fighting illogical, irrational, powerful people in her village. And all she wanted to do was study, and she just did not understand the injustice of it. And she fought it. She got support from people around her. She got support from her family. She got support from some other people also. But she really, really had to fight this battle. And she was one lone person in that village who stood up and said, no, I want to go study, And just because I'm a girl, it doesn't mean that I should not be allowed to do so. And look at where Malala is today. I mean, from the highest prize in the world to, studying at Oxford and making a change every single day with every time she opens her mouth, Again, Greta, Malala, and the Parkland students, are people who were all around your age, and they have made a worldwide impact. The Parkland students' impact, the Parkland shootings that you may have heard of, the school shootings that happened in the US, and students were so shaken by this. They were so shocked. And they needed to grieve. They were also shocked. They wanted some changes to come about because too many, you kept hearing about more and more of these shootings happening. And so they started as a way of really grieving. And then once the Parkland students started it again, it grew bigger and bigger in different parts of the country. These protests grew, it unified the entire country. It became a young people's organization that spoke to the government about changing gun laws, about not making guns so easily available to people. And that's really powerful. Each of these three impactful stories that are mentioned here on this particular slide are simple people. They were not anybody well funded or big grown up experienced people. These are people with a passion who strongly believed in one particular thing and decided that they needed to make that change. They needed to inspire other people to join them to effect that change. So, these are stories that are particularly powerful because they are of young people like you. And why are these people who seek to make an impact, why do we know that they will be successful? Now successful is relative. You can be successful in the small community you choose to serve, or you could be successful on the world stage. That is something that you choose. Some people choose to just stay away from, there are people who have won, some of the world's biggest prizes by just staying in one small village and making a change every day over there. But then there are people like Jeff Bezos who decide that no, they want to democratize it for the whole world, and decide to come on the world stage. And so success is relative. It's what you choose, what you choose as your goal. And that is how you can choose your success as well. And as you go towards this, you'll see that a lot of people who seek to make that impact, they learn a lot as they are solving these problems. They look around them, they're very observant. They can see the problems that exist in their immediate surrounding, and they choose to make a change over there. And so these are people who are going to solve big problems, because when you start by solving small problems, you learn a lot along the way. Some of that learning comes from what we identify as failure. And failure is when something doesn't work. But because something hasn't worked, it doesn't mean that it isn't going to work in the larger in the larger run. It will eventually work, but you're learning and you're strengthening your movement as you go along. These are also people who will really do well in the future of work. The future of work is not going to be the kind of work that, let's say, my generation managed well with. In my generation, it was great if you were stamped with a Stanford or a Harvard or a Stevens or Hindu. It is not going to matter anymore. It will not matter where you went to university. What will matter is, what have you done? What have you created? What problems have you solved? What kind of things have you built? That is what is going to be identified as a successful story. And those are the kind of people who will be welcomed into workplaces. There are people like Google who have actually said they are no longer going to look at a college degree, because they are convinced that experience, actually people getting their hands dirty and doing things matter much more and work much better in a workplace. Because these are people who have who have seeked out problems, who have solved problems, who've collaborated with people, who have creatively thought about solving those problems in different ways, who have built a tribe, who have convinced other people to come and work with them, who have built new ideas. these are the people who are going to excel in the future of work. I'm sure all of you by now have attended enough education seminars to know that, to know and to understand why our education system unfortunately still is the way it is. It is a leftover of colonialism. At that point of time, it was the industrial age. It was the time that, they were looking for factory workers. They were looking for people to just stand in line and roll out the same thing over and over again. It was repetitive and hence rote learning. That doesn't exist anymore. Those things have been automated already. Those jobs don't exist anymore. So it's unfortunate that our education system, for the most part, our education system still continues in that way. And we really have to, all of us come together to you sort of effect that change, not only in the education system, but also, take on projects, take on these little things, do projects within your own schools, get together with a few other students and your friends and do things to effect change and build that tribe for yourself. A crowd is what you see in groups where they're not really like-minded. You'll find them in rallies and things like that, where they're just crowding that area. They're not a tribe. They don't all truly believe in the same thing. But you, as a person who is seeking to make an impact, will seek people who will be like-minded and will do similar things with you. So you will be creating your tribe. Now, how do you do this? Are you really up for this new possible, this new world that you need to create? And how can you do it? And this is where I was coming from, that create your own project idea. Now at Collegey, we do have, projects that students do. And in fact, I'm going to invite some of my students. I think Aishna and Sunisha have both joined in, and, they were two of the students who joined the task force at Collegey, and both of them, the projects that they did were amazing. And we have several other projects that students have done. And unfortunately, Ravneet won't be able to join us, though I will tell you a little bit about her project as well, because her story is one of strength. Strength and extreme empathy. She is somebody who inspires us. She's one of our students, and she's really, really inspirational with what she has done. She has unfortunately come down with fever, so won't be able to join us today. But what our students do is that they literally just look around for any problem around them. A lot of times, and this happens, that when teenagers see a problem, they want to solve it overnight, and they want to solve the mother of all problems. Now that is the defect of your age, because you do not, I'm sorry to call it a defect, but because you do not have the experience yet to know that everything takes time and everything needs to start small. Greta went and stood in that protest in 2018. She became a household name by 2020. It takes a while. Malala, it took her years to get where she's at. Amazon, being such a giant of a company, it took them a decade. So everything takes time, and everything starts with one or two or a small group of people who come together, build something, and then convince more people to join in. And this is something that both Sunisha and Aishna will talk to you about, on how they identified a problem and how they chose to effect a change over there, and how they brought more people in to work with them in that space. And before I invite Ishna and Sunisha, I quickly want to tell you about Ravneet's story. Ravneet is, let me just quickly check if Ravneet has joined in, though she hasn't. She told me that, she wasn't feeling too well. Ravneet, through the pandemic, went through the worst kind of personal loss. The pandemic took away her grandparent and her mother. And as you may all know that, during the pandemic, when people were in hospitals, families weren't allowed to visit them. The people in the hospitals were extremely lonely, and the families were desperate. They were desperate to meet, uh, people in their family who were ill, but they were not allowed to. It was a devastating time for families, and we cannot even imagine what Ravneet may have gone through. But she chose to use her grief to bring comfort to others. And because she had been through this, she knew that people who were in hospitals were going through extreme loneliness. And she said that she wanted to, reach out to hospitals where there were older people and allow them to let students like herself go in and just talk to them, just spend time with them, just do something that would bring a smile to their faces. Now, again, at the time that she started, the pandemic was on, the hospitals were still not allowing people in. But, she said she didn't give up. She said, okay, in old age homes, let's try and do this, because older people are there and they're lonely. They don't have anybody around them. And she got a few other people from the Collegey student interns and task force. And a lot of them came together and said, we'd love to do this with you, Ravneet. And it took them a while to, get permissions, get, a projector and screen and, all the kind of facilities they had to organize. But they actually went into these old age homes and just sat with them over there and just talked to them. And someday I hope you can listen to Rav, Ravneet and some of the other students who joined her in this initiative, and how happy they were to see that the elderly that they were meeting were just delighted. They were just so happy to have somebody sit and talk to them. Older people, that's all they want. They just want some of your time, just some conversation. They're not asking for anything big. Now you'd think, what is the impact being made here? The fact that you can bring a smile to somebody's face, make somebody happy, whether it's one person or 10 or 100 or 1,000, it is a huge, huge impact that you can make in anybody's life. And for that, we really commend Ravneet and her entire group and all the people who came together with her. We're just so very proud of Ravneet and her initiative. And you'll hear similar stories. So let me start with Sunisha. I can see you there. So Sunisha, we'd love to hear from you and how you started your Collegey project, and tell us a little bit about Dakshinya, and how you went about it. So over to you, Sunisha.
Sure. So Collegey was a completely unknown platform to me back in back in May. And suddenly on my inbox, I find join Collegey student task force. And I wonder, what is a task force? Because the word in itself seems like you're going to be given tasks, and that's pretty much what we're going to do. And that was the point of time where I also realized that teaching and education is an issue that I really care about, because I have found loopholes in our education system ever since I was in middle school. I've had some terrible experiences with some teachers, but I've had some fantastic experiences with some teachers as well. And I say this having been a part of about 4 or 5 schools throughout my schooling. And now being in 12th grade as a student and as a teacher of 4 different students in the lower grades, it has helped me sort of build my ideas and formulate it a lot better. So starting off with the task force, it was a very chaotic environment. And it was a lot about finding light through the chaos. And chaos was not something I've dealt with until then. And I never even realized the importance of chaos, as a matter of fact, because in school everything is so organized. We have deadlines, that we have exams, we have a set of rules to follow, and it's all, it's all given to us on a platter, which we just have to take. And keeping aside procrastination and all of that, even there we have our teachers running behind us to finish our work and meet our deadlines. So until 12th grade, started being in 12th grade in itself, being spoon fed, and suddenly been having thrown my own self in an environment where suddenly I'm just told that this is what's going to be happening, and it just ended there. So for a day or two or three, I was just thinking all of that in, and thinking about how exactly to go about it. Suddenly, then I realized I think it's time to communicate, because we were already about 50 students on a WhatsApp group. And I think we were just still figuring out how exactly we're going to be working towards making an impact, and how we can truly help students, truly help people within our country in specific. So slowly it sort of led to communicating, and that really made me realize the importance of communication and actually reaching out to people for help if we don't know something. A majority of the times, even right now in school, I tend to just shy away from saying that I don't get this, or shy away from saying that I don't understand what's happening, I'm a little lost. And I think a big part of it comes from the fact that we've always been accustomed to working on things in a very systematic manner. So that's where I actually realized the importance of communication. And slowly that, with having given it some time, and within about 2 weeks or so, we started researching on different organizations, seeing which kind of organizations we can work with. And we had some kind of lists being provided to Suchita ma'am and Syed sir, and then they kind of stepped in. It was only after we realized the importance of communication and actually realized that, we're working towards something which is serious. It's not just another project. This is some serious business. This is some actual impact that we're creating. And I felt like that time really, reflecting back on it, that amount of time truly helped in that aspect. So I've signed up for as a teaching volunteer, as this was some sort of a foreshadowing when I said that I wanted to do. I've had issues in the education system, and that also pushed me to teaching more students. So I took up one student, and not having the strongest science background, I signed up to take biology for a 10th grader. And as a matter of fact, I have now improved in biology a lot more than I was back in 10th grade. So the whole idea of doing this project of teaching just one student made me actually develop the changes that can be made in the education system. And that's exactly what led me to talk about it to various kinds of people, network with them, and discuss these issues. So and simultaneously, I was a part of another NGO where I used to teach special children art and craft. So there was a whole sort of learning experience there as well. But an integral part of that also led to bringing about another impact, another project. And again, I was able to actually apply the communication skills that I learned in the very beginning of actually just going up to Suchita ma'am and talking about the issues I've had with the education system and saying, hey, this is my project and this is what I want to do. So with regard to the Dakshanya project, we worked on content for about 3 levels, that is level A, B, and C, on various subjects. So obviously, this was something that I could not do alone, and that was one big realization that came about. And that led me to sort of reaching out to more people and asking them if they wanted to join in. And surprisingly, within 12 hours, I had a team of 25 members on a WhatsApp group asking what's going to happen next. This was quite shocking to me because I never thought that I would have so many people coming in such a short span of time. So I was really glad that things were panning out really well. And then it came down to actually checking, getting behind the school to send us the content that they wanted us to make presentations for. And the problem with this was one of the biggest challenges was to explain simplicity and just being basic, because overcomplicating things makes it a lot more harder and confusing for any student, whether special or not, to understand. So that was one integral aspect where I had to actually explain what it is like for a special, what it is like to teach a special child. And I don't think I would have been able to actually communicate that unless I had actually taught special students earlier. So it came down to actually realizing the different aspects and seeing the various focal points that do exist in the field of special education. So having said that, I had to actually explain and show how a class is taken in a special education environment, especially when it's online. Back then, before the pandemic, teachers could go to be around those children, help them, give them some physical support, or give them certain objects that they can feel, touch, and work on their sensory issues. But with the pandemic, it was just thrown off onto the parents, and parents aren't as trained to do so because they were a lot more reliant on schools. But the shift just led to suddenly being thrown off on parents, and teachers just became facilitators. So having said that, with the presentations, it was really, really important to make sure that students don't get distracted with the number of elements that were there on the presentation. And the line spacing was one other aspect that we considered, which we don't realize these days. In fact, earlier I used to think, why does line spacing even exist? You know, how does it matter? Because the font just aligns it well. And slowly that made me realize a lot of features as well on Google Slides and PowerPoints on why they really exist. And all of these things came into use and application. And about a week or two later, once I sent all of those presentations to the school, they were quite happy with the first set. And they said, these are some great presentations here. Although we didn't really get as much critical feedback and constructive feedback in terms of how we can improve, we just went on with it. And within a month and a half, we were done with our the entire set. But one of the integral challenges that I dealt with was actually keeping track of the number of chapters that were there in each subject, because there were some subjects that had 10 chapters, while there were some just had 2 or 3. And because of that, there was a lot of confusion among the students. So that also turned out to build a chaotic environment and made me realize that chaos is not something that's not going to exist. It always is. And that is the whole point of making an impact, because impact comes out with the chaos. I don't think it ever comes out without it. And a huge part of impact is maturity, is change. So if we notice, a lot of us, when we talk about a lot of people who have created an impact, we say, oh, wow, they're so mature. Oh, wow, they've done some great things. But it all starts with maturity, which only builds along as we experience things. And that's exactly what happened throughout the Dakshanya project and the teaching volunteering opportunity. So that was a little bit of my story. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or add on to anything. Suchita ma'am, anything else to add?
Hey, Sunesha, thank you. That was lovely. I think, it was just so great to see your project, how you, I mean, it was one idea that came from you. And the amazing thing is how soon you managed to actually even complete it. You may not even have thought that you'll get so many people come on board so soon, but all you have to do, like I said, raise your voice and just ask for support, ask if anybody else is interested in something similar. And this is how you build your tribe. I mean, some of those people that you worked with are people you're going to have lifelong relationships with. you know these are people who've come together with you to solve a problem. This was really a much needed uh, thing, during the pandemic, especially when children was sitting at home, and children with special needs seem to have more learning challenges. And it was just fantastic to see the way you collaborated, communicated with all of these students, and yes, work through the chaos, which is the most important part of it all. Life is not going to be easy. Life is going to be chaotic. You're not going to have your school teachers and counselors and parents holding your hand and taking you along. That's not how it's going to be. Learn to face chaos already if you want to make a change. I think that that's a very important part. So yeah, thanks for that, Sunisha. And let's listen to Ashna now, who did a fantastic job of supporting one of our partner organizations. Over to you, Ashna.
Hi everyone, hope you're having a good day. So, as rightly said by Steve Jobs, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are actually the ones who do. Through my talk, I would like to navigate you through how your impact can make a change and how I was able to do so through my own little way. It ultimately just takes one thought and one correct step to make a change that creates a domino effect, influencing many other changes. May it merely be one as small as calling out someone when they use a racial slur, or one as extensive and daunting as starting your own NGO or startup. Every flicker, every move, every thought, and every person counts. If there's any injustice or unethical things that you feel need to be changed, or any matter that speaks out to you, go ahead and take a step to reduce it. Even if by the end of it, you're only able to make a change of 0.001%, you still made a huge difference. If all of us can take a minuscule step and do our 0.001%, it would definitely add up to 100% soon. Us being students and teenagers have a 21st century mindset that is already vocal about their opinions and is progressive in all aspects, breaking the barriers of society. Thus, making it much more easier for us to impact and positively influence people if we utilize our skills to the best. It definitely is much harder done than said. But if you're passionate about a social cause and are able to make other people around you half as passionate about it, you have done your deed successfully. Ideas to make changes usually arise from the darkest moments, giving you a newfound ray of hope and motivation to take your step and do your bit. Just like Suchita Ma'am told us about Ravneet's story. The same happened with me. Seeing the pitiful state of the country brought me to my feet and left me inspired to make a difference. During the peak of the second wave, which took India by storm, I collaborated with Janchahas to help the most vulnerable households. They were mainly the migrant workers, construction laborers, and daily wage workers that lost their income because of the lockdown and couldn't afford basic needs. Incorporating my area of interest, finance, and with zeal to learn and grow my skill set, I started crowdfunding on Give India. I managed to raise 50,426 rupees. Through crowdfunding on Give India, it helped me support 751 families with dry ration and safety kits. It was a phenomenal experience to be able to help impact lives. Apart from that, I developed several real-world skills like networking, communications, marketing, accepting denial, leadership, etc. The fundraiser helped me get a new, fresh insight into life, taught me about the value of small things, and gave me confidence that I can help people through my skills and my knowledge. The biggest life lesson it left me with was about true happiness, which comes from giving rather than receiving. The target given to me was only 10,000. And had I confined myself to it, I wouldn't have been able to make an impact leading to a change. I kept pushing my boundaries from 10,000 to 25,000 to 35,000 and to finally 50,000. I hope all of us are able to push our boundaries every day as we aim to have a positive impact on someone's lives. Thank you so much for having me, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving me a pleasure of this experience. It was definitely a privilege to be a part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
It was lovely to have you, be a part of this, Eshna. And I think that, one of your major learnings would have been how you actually got more people on board. You convinced people to be a part of this. How, like you mentioned in your talk just now, it wasn't just about raising the money, but it was also getting more people to be aware of the situation, of that requirement, of that need. So in some way they may have done whatever they could, but even raising money, that takes the power of conviction, to have other people believe in what you believe in. And it's lovely to take your story across, and I know that people at Jinsahas are doing it too. It's really lovely to see all this, that all of you students came together and did. Unfortunately, we have very little time to, bring all the stories right now, but they will all be on the platform. And in future events, you will also see other students talk about this. Eshna and Sunisha were just two of the almost 100 students who came together to, build the task force and help those in need. Very proud and very inspiring, the work done by all of them.